The banquet hall shimmered in the golden glow of chandeliers, their crystals refracting light onto the polished wooden floors. A soft hum of conversation floated in the air, blending with the occasional burst of laughter and the delicate chime of glasses toasting in celebration. The scent of fresh roses, carefully arranged in crystal vases at every table, mixed with the perfume of elegantly dressed guests, an intoxicating combination of floral sweetness and sophistication. I stood beside my wife, watching her weave through the crowd, her smile effortless, her laughter perfectly timed. She had always been good at this, moving through social gatherings with practiced ease, knowing exactly what to say to leave an impression. "This is a proud moment for us," she repeated, her voice warm, genuine. She clutched my arm briefly before turning back to our guests, basking in their nods of agreement, their murmured congratulations. I let my lips curl into a smile, but it wasn't pride that moved me. It was anticipation. Across the room, our son, Ethan, stood at the edge of the stage, his hands clasped behind his back. The room's warm lighting cast shadows across his sharp features, highlighting the quiet intensity in his eyes. He was always composed as if holding something back. That composure, that quiet steel, came from his mother. But tonight there was something else in his expression. A storm waiting to break. I watched him, sensing the shift in the air, the tension throbbing beneath his stillness. He had carried this moment inside him for years. And now, standing before a crowd of people who believed in the illusion my wife had so carefully crafted, he was ready to shatter it. A hush fell as the speeches began. Professors, mentors and classmates took the stage one by one, their words filled with admiration and pride. They spoke of Ethan's intelligence, his perseverance, his quiet strength. They described him as a leader, a man of integrity. Ethan nodded at their words, his face unreadable. But I saw the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers flexed at his sides. He was waiting. My wife sat beside me, her posture perfect, her expression glowing with the pride she so often spoke of. She applauded at the right moments, exchanged brief smiles with guests, and leaned into me as if everything was exactly as it should be. Then Ethan stood. A murmur swept through the crowd as he walked toward the podium. He moved with measured steps, his head high, his shoulders squared. The room was his now. He reached the microphone, adjusting it with steady hands. A brief crackle of static filled the air, then silence. His gaze swept the crowd before settling on her. His mother. He inhaled slowly, his expression unreadable. Then he said it. "Mom, tell them who my real father is." The words didn't explode. They cut. Precise. Measured. The room froze. My wife's smile wavered, her fingers tightening around the stem of her champagne flute until her knuckles turned white. The carefully curated air of celebration shattered in an instant. Conversations halted mid-sentence. The waitstaff, caught mid-motion, stood as still as statues. A guest coughed, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. And still, Ethan held her gaze. Unmoving. Unflinching. Across the room I saw it. The shift. The flicker of unease in him. Daniel. 3 tables away, his hand gripped his drink too tightly. His shoulders stiffened. Ethan's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. A quiet demand. "Tell them, Mom." And then my wife, the woman who always had the perfect words, opened her mouth and said nothing. A choked gasp escaped my wife's lips, barely audible over the suffocating silence. Her face drained of color. She sat frozen, her fingers still locked around her champagne flute, as if it were the only thing tethering her to reality. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. All around us, the weight of Ethan's words pressed down like a physical force. Guests shifted uncomfortably, their eyes flickering between mother and son, between wife and husband. And then, subtle but unmistakable, their gazes found him. Daniel. 3 tables away, his fingers were wrapped too tightly around the delicate stem of his glass. His breath came to shallow, his throat working as he swallowed hard. He wasn't the kind of man who drew attention. He was the quiet observer, the one who blended into the background. But in this moment, he was the fault line in the foundation, the crack that had finally given way. Ethan tilted his head, his voice quieter this time, but sharper. "Tell them, Mom." She blinked rapidly, her chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. Her nails dug into the tablecloth, clenching the fabric as if she could hold everything together with just her grip. I had known. Or at least I had suspected. The late nights, the lingering glances. The way Daniel always seemed to be there, just close enough, just present enough. A ghost in the corners of our life. The betrayal had always been a whisper in my mind, slipping between the spaces of our marriage, never loud enough to be confronted. But now here, under the unforgiving glow of the chandelier, it had taken shape. Solid. Real and undeniable. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked at Ethan, at me, at the people who had once believed in her. The truth was moments away from being spoken. And there would be no taking it back. Daniel shifted in his seat, inhaling sharply, as if that single breath might save him. His movements were slight, just a tightening of the jaw, a brief flicker of the eyes, but I saw it. Everyone saw it. Beside him, his wife's confusion deepened, her brows furrowing as she looked between her husband and my wife. Her voice broke the silence, raw with uncertainty. "Daniel." The name fell like a stone into the heavy air. And then my wife broke. A strangled sob ripped from her throat. It was raw, unrestrained, a sound I had never heard from her before. She covered her mouth as if trying to push it back down, as if she could hold in years of deception with just her trembling fingers. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Ethan didn't move. He didn't blink. His expression didn't shift, not in anger, not in sadness. It was the look of a man who had expected this all along. Daniel's wife, still caught in the space between disbelief and realization, pushed her chair back abruptly. The scrape of wood against tile was jarring in the silence. "Daniel," she said again, her voice now sharp, demanding. "What is he talking about?" Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. I watched him carefully. The way his shoulders tensed, the way his fingers trembled slightly at his sides. And then he looked at me for the first time in years. I saw it, really saw it. The shame. The guilt. The weight of every secret he had buried, of every moment he had stolen from me, from us. The worst part. It wasn't anger that filled me. It wasn't even hatred. It was emptiness. I could have stood up. Could have shouted. Could have demanded answers. That wouldn't change a thing. Instead, I just breathed. Because there was nothing left to say. My wife collapsed into her seat as if her body could no longer bear the weight of her own deception. Her hands trembled as they covered her face, her sobs muffled yet unmistakable. Around us, the guests sat frozen, unsure whether to comfort her or retreat into the safety of their own whispered judgments. A murmur spread through the crowd, hushed voices exchanging shock, pity, and quiet condemnation. Champagne glasses were set down, conversations were abandoned, and the illusion of celebration had vanished completely. Ethan exhaled, his shoulders finally relaxing, as though the burden he had carried for years had been lifted. He turned to me then, his eyes meeting mine. Searching. Waiting. I nodded. It was enough. Without another word, he stepped down from the stage and walked toward the exit. The heavy doors swung shut behind him, and for a moment the silence felt unbearable. Then slowly Daniel rose from his chair. His movements were stiff, reluctant. He avoided his wife's glare, her eyes burning into him with the kind of betrayal that only surfaces when a truth is revealed too late. He said nothing. Instead, he followed Ethan, shoulders hunched, like a man walking toward an inevitable reckoning. And my wife didn't move. For years, she had built this life delicately, arranging the pieces, convincing herself that if she just smiled enough, loved enough, pretended enough, it would stay whole. But the truth had a pulse of its own. And tonight it had spoken. I walked toward the exit, the hum of murmurs behind me fading into insignificance. The weight of the room, of my wife's grief, of Daniel's guilt, it no longer belonged to me. Outside, the night air was sharp and clean, the cool breeze washing over me. The city stretched out before us, its skyline a glittering promise of something beyond. This moment, Ethan stood by the railing, staring out at the vastness, his silhouette dark against the neon glow of passing cars and distant skyscrapers. He didn't turn as I approached. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice low, steady. A long pause. And then, finally, a quiet, measured nod. "Yeah," I leaned beside him, letting the silence stretch between us, not as distance but as understanding. Somewhere inside, my wife was still crying. Somewhere inside, Daniel was trying to explain himself. Somewhere inside, an illusion lay in ruins. But out here, under the open sky, the air was lighter. I placed a firm hand on my son's shoulder. He didn't speak, didn't move. But he didn't pull away either. And in the quiet, we stood together, letting the weight of the past dissolve into the night.